Hi. I cannot hear you. Please switch on the microphone.
I said, Здравствуй.
Yeah.
I practiced.
Oh, so cool, so cool. Thank you so much. You're the first, actually, today who speaks Russian. Thank you so much that you joined us. It's so interesting to know much more about Glide now. So David, he's a founder, co-founder, and CEO of Glide. I know, like everyone already uses Glide here because it's so convenient and so easy to learn app. So just David, please tell us a bit about Glide, about its functionality, like how you see it, and then we will go to our interview session and just ask many questions.
Sure. Sounds great. Let me just, I'll share I've got some slides. I made my slides in Figma, one of our favorite tools. It's a little bit new for me to do slides in Figma, so I hope they work. Let me
So
just get
advanced,
started.
yeah.
Yeah, so I'm glad that some of you guys are familiar with Glide already. Just to catch you up, Glide lets you make apps from Google Sheets without code. You pick a sheet from your Google Drive, and Glide will analyze the data and try to make some smart decisions about how to structure an app just based on looking at the data. Then you can customize it. Glide doesn't get it right on the first try. It just does its best guess for a computer doing it. Then you can drag and drop, and you can add functionality and change the design. And then you can instantly share it with a web link. So Glide apps right now are published primarily as progressive web apps. They're live on the internet. And as you edit them, the app just continuously updates. Here's a fancy looking sort of screenshot of this scenario. So you can see there's a Google Sheet with maybe the inventory from your store or the items that you sell in your shop. And then when you pick it in Glide, Glide can help you create a Stripe connected internet mobile store where you can sell your, I guess this is a mirror, your fancy egg-shaped mirrors in case you sell those. Now, I know Stripe is a bit of a dirty word in Russia because they are ignoring you. I'm so sorry. So maybe we'll talk about that a little bit more today. Now, this no-code space is very busy, and there are a lot of really good options, and there are some not so good options. So I thought it would be worth mentioning how Glide is different. So primarily, a Glide is mobile first. We have plans to support other form factors, but we started with the phone because we thought it was the simplest place to start because the layout and design of mobile apps is simpler compared to large screen apps. And we also felt that was kind of a neglected area of application development. Web gets a ton of attention, but mobile is the most popular computer on the planet, the most popular form factor. So we started there. Glide apps are data driven. So you start with just the information that you want your app to be about. And then Glide, you collaborate with Glide and sort of, you can think about it as like clay on a spinning wheel. You kind of just shape your data into an application. This is in contrast to sort of design first approaches where maybe you start with an empty screen and you design the user interface first, and then you connect the user interface to data where we go backwards because of that spreadsheet inspiration. A Glide is also very simple compared to many tools like Bubble, for example. Bubble is super powerful, has a ton of features. Glide is both deliberately simpler than most tools, and it's just sort of accidentally simpler because it's just about a year and a half since our launch. So it just has fewer features. And that's one of the main challenges of these tools. Like it's easy to start simple because you just don't have features yet. And the challenge is as you make your tool more powerful, like can you keep it easy to use and very accessible? I know that everyone's going through growing pains like that as we really try to rapidly implement all the features that everyone asks us for. And Glide apps are very easy to share. So we did not start in a place where you have to download a build of your app and publish it to the app stores, for example. We were very inspired by how easy it is to develop and share web-based software. It's just this continuous stream of iteration. So as soon as within minutes of signing up for Glide, you can either copy a sample app or build an app from a spreadsheet. And we instantly give you this published link that you can share with anyone. And anyone who scans a QR code with that link or taps on that link from Twitter, they're just instantly using your app. There's no download step. They can optionally add it to their home screen, but that's optional. Many people just use Glide apps in their web browser. So why are we taking this approach? Why are we starting with the data? Why do we talk about Google Sheets and spreadsheets so much? This is a totally non-scientific chart that I recreated from a presentation I saw a long time ago. And this is just to give you an impression. It's more or less accurate, but these are the top 10 or so programming languages in the world by the number of people who use them. And then there's Excel. And Excel is a programming language, but it's also a spreadsheet tool. And the y-axis is the millions of people who use these tools. So you can see that compared to spreadsheets, most normal code-based programming languages are extremely niche. So we were very inspired by this fact. This really captured our attention. And we said, spreadsheets, there's something going on there. They're extremely popular. They're very durable. They're not a trend. They're like 40 years old. They are flexible enough to adapt to basically any use case. So you see people using spreadsheets to model the operations of Fortune 50 companies. And then people use the same software to start a new business or to manage a project. It's just one of the most enduring and incredible technologies that we've ever created. It's like email and spreadsheets. They're kind of these dinosaurs, but they just never die. There's some deep properties that these technologies have that are super beneficial. So we were just like, let's learn these lessons and let's stand on the shoulders of giants and see if we can build a non-technical programming platform that combines the versatility, the flexibility, the power and usefulness of spreadsheets with a mobile design tool to let 1 billion people create software for the most popular type of computer on the planet. That was the idea behind Glide. Now, inside of Glide, you will find, oh, go ahead.
Previous slide, haven't you considered Airtable, for example? Because Airtable is of course, it's not well known as Google spreadsheet, but still,
sure.
I know there are so many integrations, especially with Integromat and other tools. So yeah, why you didn't consider? Because I didn't see it here. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah. So we wanted. So when you say, why didn't you consider Airtable? What I think you mean is, why didn't we create a tool that turns Airtable into apps instead of Google Sheets? Google Sheets just has like 250 million active users. It's huge. And it also has an API. Airtable did not have an API when we started Glide. There was no way for us to do it. We did go to Airtable with the Glide prototype and say, please make an API. We would like to use Airtable because we love Airtable. And they said, okay, we'll do it. So it was definitely something we thought of, but we started with a data source that was ready to go. Because when you're a startup, you just need to make progress today. You can't wait. But our plan eventually, we're not part of Google. We don't have specific loyalties to Google. We're very excited to support Excel, Airtable, Notion, your CRM, Salesforce, any data source. We're just interested in sort of this data-driven approach to creating apps. And we don't have any specific bond to Google Sheets. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, we're super excited to support Airtable. Google Sheets, everyone loves it, but Airtable is amazing and has a lot of really, really cool features that we're excited to use. So when you open Glide, I've sort of given this very simple description of how Glide works. You pick a Google Sheet and you have an app, and then you sort of customize it a little bit. So it's very easy for me to give a false impression of how powerful Glide is already. So inside of Glide, what you'll find is something we call the data editor. And the first thing it does is it just lets you see all of the data in your app. So you'll see all of the information in your Google Sheet inside of this view in Glide. But the power comes when you start adding computed columns. And we were just talking about Airtable. Airtable has these. It's kind of a staple of modern table-driven apps these days. So Google Tables just came out. Notion has this. If you've ever used a modern tool that represents data as a table, you can usually add like a formula column. So Glide is no different. It is different in some ways in that we have sort of higher level calculations. So instead of formulas in Glide, we kind of give you this configuration driven approach that's a little bit more beginner friendly. But for example, you can see, I know I didn't do a great job on this slide of highlighting it, but there's a highlight over the if then else column. And the if then else column takes three values. It takes a Boolean column, a then value, and an else value. And based on whether the Boolean value is true or false, it selects one of the other values that you've given it. So you can start to create this sort of dynamic conditional behavior in your data set. And you can also create relations between rows in different sheets or rows in the same sheet. So the simple example is if you have an employee directory where each employee has their own email address and the email address of their manager, you can relate the manager email address into the same table on the employee email column to create a relation between each employee and their manager. And then in the app, you can see the employee and then you can see their manager and you can tap on their manager to go to their manager's page, for example. So you create these connections between your data. And then you create calculations on top of that. Another example is a roll-up. So this is common terminology. A roll-up is like a sum or an average. So you could create a personal budget app. That's one of our most popular templates, where you record your expenses and you categorize them. And then you use the roll-up column to sum all of the expenses in each category, and you can see where you're spending all of your money. It's probably on internet services that you forgot to cancel. So go check your inbox. So yeah, we have basically a spreadsheet or an Airtable equivalent interface inside of Glide. And this is where a lot of Glide's power comes from. To summarize, Glide's not simply like a templating tool that takes a spreadsheet and makes a pretty thing that looks like an app connected to it. Glide's a pretty sophisticated, like data-driven programming tool, and Google Sheets is just one of our data sources. And the app you get is also not strictly mobile only. It's mobile first, but the app will adapt to the different form factors that you use it on automatically. So you can see on the right, we have a phone-sized device, and then we have an iPad, for example. And we do some simple automatic layout transformations to try to use the screen a little bit better. We have a long way to go. Our large screen layouts are they're pretty new, and we're still mostly focused on the mobile, the phone size screen. But you can also run these in your browser, and Chrome has this amazing feature on desktop for Mac and PC where you can install a Glide app. It'll go on your taskbar or on your dock. It runs in a window, and it's very cute because you can resize it to make it narrow, and it looks like this floating little phone on your screen, which is actually very useful for small apps. So we have internal dashboards at Glide that show our trending apps, how many users we have, our business metrics, and I just run this as sort of a little floating phone on my screen. And then you can pull it wide and it will automatically adjust to be a larger interface. So for example, we also have a Glide app that helps us manage all of the submissions to our template store. And that I usually use that in big mode. So I can see all the submissions in a list, and I can pick them and I can see their details and I can accept or reject them. And this is something we're very proud of because we like to let you focus on the idea of your app or your objective, and not on the technology or the different operating systems or devices that your users are using. We try to, like I said, we try to simplify a lot about how Glide works. So today, you can't make your app behave differently on desktop, tablet, or phone. You just describe how you want your mobile app to look, and then we make decisions for you about how that changes on a per device basis. And we make even other small adjustments, like if you're running on iOS versus Android, we draw things slightly differently to make the app feel more at home on that platform. And Our assumption is that most people just don't want to think about how text entries work on iOS versus Android. You just want your users to enter text. So we make that decision for you. So that's another trade-off. I have to say, if you want pixel level control over your app because you need to do something that no one has ever done before, Glide's not the platform for you. That's not our focus. Glide's a much higher level platform where you sort of just describe the basic structure and layout of your app, and then Glide will automatically extend it to different operating systems and different devices. And we're excited to continue doing this. So for example, maybe someday we'll have a mode where your Glide app runs in AR or on a television or on a smartwatch. And we'll make a lot of those decisions about how that transformation works because it's a very technical set of design decisions. So what are some examples? What are people doing with Glide? Well, one of the most popular ones is directories, employee directories, sports team directories, church directories. These are private apps with personal information of employees of companies, so phone numbers, so you can call your colleagues or you can call people in your book club. Conferences. This is the biggest one, the one we first saw sort of take off. You can quickly put together an app that anyone attending your conference can add to their home screen. I guess this is, sadly, this is less desirable now because everyone's at their desk on their normal computer when they go to a conference like this these days. But we saw a ton of conference apps very early on for Glide. So it's just so easy to put together a schedule and a list of speakers and sponsors and maybe a swag store and a chat channel where people can post. And then people can favorite which sessions they're attending, and you just sort of instantly build up your own personal agenda for a conference. And there's other sort of specialized tools on the market for creating conference apps, but Glide's free to use. You could definitely do this on our free tier. So we saw a lot of conference apps. Stores. I mentioned before, you guys don't have Stripe. Sorry about that. You can build a store on Glide. It is not our main focus. We are not focused on building commerce apps. So, but you can build a very simple store very quickly. All you need is a spreadsheet with the name of your items and the price and a unique identifier for each item. And if you just have one spreadsheet with those things in it and you can use Stripe, you can make a store app really quickly where people can make purchases. It's really fun. Finance, this is a big one. So here I have some screenshots of like a personal budgeting app, but we see lots of financial apps, whether they're sort of fundraising or budgeting or expense reporting. It's very easy to put together a Glide app where you simply can take a picture, attach a receipt, put an amount in, pick a category, upload, and that will start building a spreadsheet. I did a workshop, I think it was earlier this week, and we made from scratch an expense reporter app, and I sent the link to all of the people on the call, and everyone just started inputting expenses, and it was just building this spreadsheet automatically. So that's one analogy I like to use about Glide apps. If you're a big Google Sheets user, a Glide app is like a remote control for your spreadsheet. So it connects, and you can sort of give this app to all of your employees, and then in a very structured way, they can fill out the spreadsheet and keep it up to date. It's very useful. And then we see a lot of reporting and inspections apps, apps used within companies to sort of collect regular reports from employees, for example, about cleaning or inspections or inventory. So just maintaining the state and the tracking of business operations. And we have a new section of our website called Prefab Apps where we focus on these use cases. And that leads me to one phrase I wanted to share, which is dark apps. So this is a focus of Glide. Dark apps are apps that never go to the App Store, and they're sort of used privately. And this is something we're very interested in. Glide, we're very interested in helping businesses use apps, create custom apps and use them to improve their operations. We're much more interested in apps, private apps for businesses, than we are in like helping you create the next Deliveroo app in the App Store or the next Airbnb. So our focus is more on these sort of private apps for businesses, organizations, teams, We're very intrigued by that. Those apps don't have a natural home in the App Store. If you try to submit your employee directory app to the App Store, Apple will likely reject it because it's not generally interesting to anyone except your employees. But we love this idea of custom software that's maybe for a limited audience or a limited amount of time. We think that's fascinating. Just like, when you go to the App Store, you don't find spreadsheets of businesses there. Those are just inside the business doing the the work every day. So we're really interested in those kind of use cases, the things people use spreadsheets for today. Sometimes we say that every spreadsheet is an amazing app waiting to happen. We think that Glide is sort of the evolution of spreadsheets into the mobile world. But if you want to see more use cases, like people use Glide for basically anything you could think of. And if you go to glideapps.com/templates, you'll find hundreds of examples of what people are doing with Glide. And so, whatever we think we're doing with Glide, our users have their own ideas and they just do it anyway. So we love that. And I think maybe spreadsheets even had the same idea. The inventors of spreadsheets were probably just thinking about finance, but you have people using spreadsheets to judge dance competitions and organize cooking or bake-offs. They're used for everything. So we think that's just a very special property of Glide that we'll always keep. And one other important thing is, so Glide started as apps from Google Sheets without code, but the Google Sheet part is basically optional at this point. And you'll be able to use Glide without Google in the coming months. We have a new data source. Our first data source beyond Google Sheets is called Glide Tables. And it's like Google Sheets without the Google Sheet. And it just lives in Glide. It has some interesting properties. They're much more scalable than Google Sheets. Google Sheets don't scale past 50 or 100,000 rows very well, but many apps need much more data than that. And another cool property is that Glide tables can be shared between apps. So you can make an app for for recording expenses and then an admin app for approving. And they can point to the same Glide table and sort of instantly sync the data. And there's a lot of other interesting properties with our own data source in terms of like what kind of data types we can store in columns, because we have a lot more flexibility there. Yeah, that's the explanation of what Glide is and what people do with it. So there you have it.
David, thank you so much. It was really so cool. You know what? I think that Glide is actually underestimated tool yet, because I actually know by my experience, we just helped one really quite big company in Russia. Maybe people just know it, calls Samakat, just to build all their mass recruitment process on Glide using a desktop version. So how it was like, there are so many agencies who just make lead generation for these like couriers, and all this stuff they just aggregates to one Google Sheet, and this Google Sheet use already another Google Glide app. So you use the same Google Sheet for two apps. It's really amazing actually. And yeah, that's the thing. It really was possible to create so huge system for this, and use as tool for just so many agencies. And especially that it has a desktop version. It was really so amazing because it was just after you launched it, because that's the thing. You have to be just creative and try to implement different stuff, so you can find a way how to solve your problem actually without even difficult tools like Bubble. Yeah, Bubble is amazing, but sometimes, especially for MVP products, you need to think about much easier stuff. And also what I really like about Glide, that you for example, for local businesses, like for example, I just do coffee or wherever, some donuts, and you can just really distribute it by a QR code or just a link. So and people don't need even to download it from store, because there's like lots of statistics that people don't download new apps already so anymore from the store. And that's the thing that I would like to ask, how you see in general, the market of mobile apps in maybe in 2 years, in 5 years, whether they're going to switch to PVA or they're gonna stay like
Yeah.
for publishing in the stores. Because I
Yeah.
see that it's changing a bit. That like this app store monopoly is just not good for people, and that's why they're trying to
Yeah.
avoid. Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have to give Apple credit. The app store they built is amazing. There's a reason everyone is so upset, and it's because it's hard to get in the app store, and it's a great place to be. There's a lot of good services there. But yeah, there are a lot of downsides as well. So, I mean, I use iPhone, and I love that the app store is super high quality. There's no junk, and there's no viruses or anything. But as a developer, I don't like the app store because it's just so hard to use. Um, but at Glide, we are, I use the term non-dogmatic about technology. Like Glide is not a technology story. We don't we don't talk about PWA. You won't find those letters on our website. We will just use whatever platform will give us the most advantage. So we bet on PWA early as just a way to iterate our product more quickly, because we said if we start with App Store, we're just going to move very slowly and not learn fast enough. Yeah, whichever way the market goes, we will make sure that our users can launch on the platform that they choose. Our App Store support is nearing release, and I don't expect a lot of people to adopt it compared to PWA. We want to have it as an option, and people think they need it, but people also think their app needs to support 100,000 users tomorrow. And these things evolve pretty slowly over time. I caught the tail end of David's presentation, and he gave this example, like, should I use NoCode? Because what if my thing is as big as Airbnb? There's no one. Airbnb didn't make Airbnb on day one with code and then just load millions of users onto it. They rebuilt Airbnb probably 10 or 20 times. So even if you build with code, it's gonna break if it grows, and you're gonna have to remake it. Like we were remaking Glide's backend all the time to scale apps to 1,000 users, to 100,000 users, to millions of users. So I think I kind of got off track on your question about where PWA versus App Store is going. I would love PWA to win because as a developer, I love it. I think users still prefer the vigilance of Google and Apple sort of protecting the App Store. But it's definitely an exciting time to be involved with all of these because everything's changing so quickly. But I would love if Apple implemented web push so we could have push notifications with PWA. That's the one thing that really stings for us, is that we can't do push notifications unless you go to the App Store.
Yeah, but what actually, it's interesting. What's your strategy for the Glide in the future? So what the Glide is gonna like look like in 5-10 years? What's that?
5 or 10 years. Well, our overall mission is to create 1 billion new software developers in 10 years. So Glide will have to grow and become powerful enough and stay simple to let people use it, to let that many people apply Glide to their problems successfully. So in general, Glide just has to become more capable. So there's I compared, Bubble is super powerful and Glide is simple but young and limited in some ways. You can't make a button in Glide today that when you press it, deletes the contents of the cell. There's a lot of our story that's not ready yet in terms of actions. We're totally surprised of how many people use Glide given its limited features. That's actually taught us a lot about how to prioritize and what's actually important. But yeah, Glide will get more powerful with automations, actions. We need a more powerful design system. So today, Glide's design system is stack-based. It's one-dimensional. So each screen is just one stack of components. You can't put two buttons next to each other. If you need two buttons side by side, don't use Glide. But we're working on a whole new design of our builder environment right now that's going to let us add things like grouping to components. And once you have grouping, you can say this group has a horizontal layout, and you can start to build a little bit more power. So I would say, Glide just has to become more powerful and easier to use. That's what we plan to do with it. And specifically, another interesting thing is we want to add a lot of other data sources. So if you want to build an internal app for your business and not all of your data is in Google Sheets, it might be in other sources. We want to let you connect directly to those. So that's another big one.
No, I actually think that it's another plus besides that Google Sheets is has the highest demand. Is that Google Sheets actually has like lots of integrations with anything almost. I mean, just any service has integration, and I think integrations is just one of the like main feature as well. So yeah, and it's interesting that you said that you, as I understood correctly, you're not going to the really difficult field like Bubble does. I mean, just not becoming so powerful and so complex. You prefer to stay simple, but just with more functionality, with more like flexible stuff, but just not being like so difficult.
Yeah, I mean, the dream is to be all powerful and also very simple, but that is very, very difficult. So we will always bias on the side of creating something that is easier for non-technical people to use. That's our priority. So we will not shovel tons of technical features into Glide because I think you can make a no-code tool that is more complicated than programming. And just because you're not writing text doesn't mean you are making progress on the complexity of building software. So we're very careful about that.
What was like the most difficult thing in creating the product, like creating Glide? What was challenging, like challenged you the most?
Challenged us the most.
Because you're so young and you're so already like far enough. I mean, just
well, it's the one difficult thing is the quirkiness of all the different mobile browsers and being able like delivering features that are going to work for as many people as possible. That's a big that's very difficult. Like even on iOS, like Safari for iPhone, like we are battling bugs all the time and trying to sort of find subtle workarounds. And sometimes these bugs will get fixed and sometimes they'll come back. So we're always watching, we're changing features and working around them. So that's very tricky. And we're seeing people build enormously complicated apps on top of Glide with, they'll have a sheet with like 300 columns that implements like a matchmaking algorithm or something. So making those things compute efficiently is also a big challenge. And we have some very exciting technologies and innovations we're going to blog about, ways we're trying to make those calculations happen a lot faster. Because one of the core innovations of Glide is we have this sort of recalculation engine modeled after spreadsheets where, a piece of data can change here and it can cause a whole thousands of rows to recalculate. So that's doing that very efficiently is a big challenge.
It's actually one of the questions which I would like to ask, because when I used Glide, I just did a lot on the calculation on the Google Sheet side, not on Glide side. So, and for me, it was interesting whether I do it right or not. Probably it's better to do on Glide rather than on Google Sheet, but still there were no such options. That's the thing. How like whether it works stable if I do all these calculations on Google Sheet side, it's like almost the same, or there will be some like not limitations, but something wrong can happen.
It's much better to use the Glide features to do your programming. So that was one of the benefits of starting with the Google Sheet is like we could make apps that looked pretty sophisticated and did calculations when Glide was like 3 months old just by using formulas in the Google Sheet. But the way that works is Glide will update the data in your Google Sheet and wait up to 3 minutes for Google to recalculate your spreadsheet and then tell Glide that there's a change. So one, it's just very slow and requires internet access to add, like to do very basic calculations or formatting or something. Glide has we're adding more and more of these features. So you can do math, do manipulations on text with our computed columns in the data editor. And when it's in Glide, those calculations happen instantly on the device. They don't go to the network or anything. So you can make a calculator app that, like, as you are typing numbers, you see the sum and the chart like instantly updating. It's very cool. So yeah, we always recommend that you use Glide's built-in calculation functions. And especially as we add more data sources, we're going to add data sources that don't have a spreadsheet on them. So for one, we're excited about for our own internal apps is we want to connect to Stripe. So we can see all of our customers and orders and make support apps and stuff like that. Stripe doesn't have the ability to add a calculated property across all of your customers because Stripe is not a spreadsheet. But our calculation columns will apply to any data source. So I recommend that you always try to build everything inside of Glide.
So cool, thank you. Because I had this question, I didn't know who to ask. So now I have this opportunity.
Well, we have a shout out. I mean, one cool thing about NoCode, I love that every NoCode platform has their own community where you can go and you can collaborate with people. So Glide has one too. So if you ever have any questions, this is something that we have a lot of people very excited to talk about and brainstorm. You can post on our community forum.
Yeah, actually, the thing that I think is like some no-code tools are successful and other no, it's just because of community. Because you have if you start learning the like tool, you have lots of questions and you need like sources to ask or to search that someone already asked. That's why, for example, I like Bubble so much that you can share almost anything what you want. So that's the thing, and just community information like learning lessons and whatever, it's so useful for new tools. And and especially it's cool when your community creates it by yourself, so that you don't need to do anything. And like I like the idea, what I like in your product, especially that you did it as like MVP. First, MVP of Glide, it's on the spreadsheet. The next stage, it's already like using its own data resource, and it's I think it's a good sample how to do even MVP products for SaaS services. Yeah, so like no code. So it's really so cool. I think it's so cool idea to do this.
And on that note, one thing I would like to say to everyone who's interested in no code, and I think most people have this orientation, but you should start building today. I think you should ignore these questions about what if I have 1 million users. That's a great problem to have later. But just find a no code platform, and that's another thing. You can have this sort of choice paralysis, or there's so many good tools. If your idea is good, it doesn't really matter what no code tool you pick. Just pick one you like that you think is going to work, that has a good community. Start making, and the most important thing is like get what you're building in your users' hands now. Make a limited version and get it to 50 people tonight. Like, stop waiting. Just get feedback from people, because you might learn on day one that no one wants it and you need to change it. Like there's so much you have to learn. So that's definitely our philosophy at Glide as well. We started sharing Glide when it was like woefully inadequate. You could only make one app at a time. If you wanted to like redesign your screen, you had to delete the whole screen. Like it was junk. And like we asked our friends to try it and we felt bad. We felt bad asking them to try it because like we're like, oh, this is so painful. But on one of our first lessons was we gave our friends this Rubik's Cube, a Rubik's Cube with spikes on it. That was like the early version of Glide. So bad. And what they said to us is, I love it. They said, I've always wanted to be able to make an app. And I will basically do anything, no matter how complicated or painful, if you can let me build an app without code. So we said, okay, well, like if they're going to tolerate this, then maybe people really want this. So yeah, don't get confused by all the different no-code tools. Just pick one that has the capabilities you need. Start making something right away. Start with a template, put your content in there and give it to people right away. And not just your parents, or people who like you. Maybe give it to someone who doesn't like you very much. Get some real truth about it.
Especially who don't like you, yeah. For sure. If I think it's the moment when you have this aha moment, you know. And I just also remember how I first time just faced the no code. I was so shocked, you know. I can't even sleep during the night that it's really exists and you can do this. So I think even if you have so like it seems like poor product, but if it has real value, like for sure your customer will love it, and they will waiting for it actually when it
Yeah.
will be just powerful enough. So I think it's just more about like value rather than just like business or product. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so cool, so cool. Okay, so let me check for the questions from the audience. And yeah, guys asking about limitations, just a bit more. I understand that I would say that glide is there are lots of limitations for sure because it's so simple and it's so easy, but they just probably want to know more when you need to switch from like glide to something else, and if to switch to which kind of like maybe no code platform or maybe just code they need to switch, and how to make it smoothly. How, yeah.
So one really great thing about no code, if you ever do reach this moment where you have to graduate from a no code platform to hiring engineers and building from source code, congratulations. That is a huge accomplishment. Our goal at Glide is to reach, I call it escape velocity. Glide has reached escape velocity when you can go into space with it. And that's definitely where we're going. Glide is not intended as an MVP platform that you use to prototype and then you go hire engineers. But if you do reach that point, a great thing about no code is if you have an app with users that's sort of buckling under load and you need to rebuild it, that app is like a design specification of what you should build. And you can take that and you can show that to your engineering team and say, okay, we need a more scalable version of this. So that's, if you're worried about investing in a no code platform because you're worried about this point in the future where you're going to have to rebuild, that no code app is like the best thing that an engineering team could ask for, to like, oh, it should work like this and it should look like this. Like, thank you. We can try it and then we can rebuild it. So that's, you can sort of think about your no code prototype as the ideal information that you would need to give to a team that's going to actually build a full code solution, for example. Yeah, we're always pushing the boundary of Glide. We learned a lot. We had a customer building 15 apps with the potential to reach like 30 million people 2 weeks ago. So they came to us and they said, if 15 million people use these apps at the same time, what's going to happen? Like, will they stay online?
Really,
And
like
we said,
you for one app?
basically, yeah, 15 million people use this app. And we said, we think that will be fine, but let us do some preparations. And we built a new version of Glide that had properties that we knew would scale. And we learned so many things that we're sort of bringing back into the entire Glide platform. So that's another really cool thing when you use a platform like Glide is one customer will bring something to our attention and we fix the problem. And then thousands, anyone else who uses Glide gets the benefit. So if we fix a bug or we improve design or we figure out how to make the app scale to millions, everyone gets that benefit. So we're very excited about that. Yeah.
It's so cool that you're like you are small yet and you're so flexible, so you can be just really adjust to customers requests. So I think guys who is just really willing to build something on Glide, just pay attention because they have this approach. It's really so cool, if to be honest, because it's so difficult. Yeah.
We are obsessed with making Glide fulfill its mission. And we want Glide to be synonymous with software development someday. We want it to be the main thing. When you need to make software, you use Glide. That's how we want people to think 10 years from now. So it's going to take a lot of ingenuity, and we have an incredibly talented team of some of the best engineers and designers in the world. And our job is to fix the hard problems so you can focus on your unique idea or your problem. And that's another thing that we saw during the COVID crisis is this, we call them emergency apps. So we saw non-technical people have a problem and then within 2 days make an app, their first app ever. And then the day after that, 50,000 people are using it. And this was just proof to us that we're building in the right way. We made something that's scalable, easy to share, easy to start, non-technical, super effective. And it just motivates us to make Glide a more and more powerful, more scalable platform.
Sure, yes. I mean, like, it's all great mission, if to be honest, like strategy and yes, yeah. And there was a question about design. Are you planning to extend design options in the so near future, or maybe like a year, 2 years?
Yeah, we have don't tell anyone, but we have a new version of the Glide Builder that will probably be available. I should always double what I say. I'm always like, it's 2 weeks away. Okay, 5 weeks, like 4 or 5 weeks. We're doing some really big surgery on the Glide Builder environment that will let us take a few more steps towards a more powerful layout system for Glide. And we're also very cautious because we think it's a fallacy that we think design is not easier than programming. And a lot of no-code tools, they think if we can turn a programming problem into a design problem, then we've made progress. We don't think that's progress because there are not very many good designers, and design is very tricky. It's not formalized. It's hard to learn compared to software engineering. So yeah, we want to extend the design options while keeping Glide data focused and super easy. We want, the person who is working in operations at a company to be able to access all of the design features, basically. But yeah, they are coming. We're really excited about to sort of a limited 2-dimensional layout options where you can do components side by side. But we always want it to be very hard to make a bad app. So that really limits what you do with design in terms of what color can I use lemon yellow on an orange background, and how can we give you the flexibility to pick your brand colors but like avoid that mistake, because we have people who they'll make an app where it's a white background with a white accent color, and we show a warning icon, and we're trying to help you so much, but yeah, there will be more design options.
Actually, it's interesting to listen to your opinion, because, for example, whether people need to do a lot product management stuff before they go to Glide. I think that they're not so much as for Bubble, for example. For Bubble, you just cannot build something on Bubble before you do all your wireframes, all your design, all your client flows and whatever. And for Glide, it's because of it's limited. You don't have so many options, and you just really can sit and already start creating without any product management and product thinking so much. Yeah, so it's like,
yeah, we have some loose terminology around this. We call it design by curation. So Glide makes suggestions to you, and you say no, yes, more of this, less of this. We never want to start with a blank slate. That was one of our first principles. We're like, this is intimidating. Someone should not look at a blank page to start. They should start with a hypothesis that Glide generates from their data of what their app does, and then they can refine it. And that's another thing we haven't improved in a long time. We could make Glide much better at automatically designing your app, but we've not invested in that too much. It's actually a really tricky user education piece, because a lot of people, when Glide makes their default app from their spreadsheet, they think Glide is an automatic platform, that they think as their spreadsheet changes, their app will continue to gain new features. we don't, that's not how Glide works. Glide will make your app as a starting point, but then it stops automatically building your app because we don't want your boss to open the spreadsheet and add a new table and put in special information and then it's in the app. Like the Glide doesn't work that way because you have people collaborating on the spreadsheet. But we could do a lot of improvements there for Glide's, ability to design your app for you. But yeah, we like this process, this data-driven design process where Glide measures your data. So, oh, I think this is an email. I think this is a phone number. I think this page represents a person, and just shows those things to you. And then you can just make yes, no decisions about it is how we'd like most of designing Glide to work.
Again, I always forget. So cool. It's really interesting. I think let me check questions because I think we already. Do you have iframe actually?
We have a component inside of Glide called WebView, where you can embed content.
Is the way how you can do payments, Russian payments.
Probably, yeah. You just have to make sure that your payment provider allows iframe embedding because many websites don't let you do that for security reasons. They want you to make an iframe and put Google in it and then try to get people to sign into their Gmail account and steal their password or something.
Yeah, sure.
So it's tricky. You can try it and it may or may not work.
Yeah, sure. It's cool stuff. Yeah, we'll try it because I know that there are limitations for payments, but I think there are some ways to just avoid them. Just to try to do this review stuff. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. David. I mean, it was so interesting. It's so deep conversation actually. We just really talked a lot about Glide, and I do really think that just Glide has so much potential, and just people need to be a bit more creative sometimes and just not underestimate it, please, really, guys. Yeah, so thank you so much. I was so pleased to have you here today for the conference, and it was so interesting, and we'll wish you and Glide so many growth in the future that you would just really do one of the most powerful mobile app in general.
Thank you very much. It was really fun to be here.
Thank you. Then just have a good day, and yeah, we will just have a break a bit because guys are so tired after eight lectures.
All right, bye everyone.
Bye, have a good day. Bye.